Norco, California is known as Horsetown, USA. The motto is city living in a rural atmosphere. Lately, things have been more city than rural. Norco is also known for the California Rehabilitation Center. If you look closely behind the prison walls, you'll find a secret that almost no one knows about. A historical and architectural wonder, the abandoned, crumbling, triumphant, and tragic Norconian Resort Supreme. Welcome to the Norconian Resort Supreme, where the biggest stars, the greatest athletes, and the richest of the rich stayed and played in luxury.
All right, boys, hit it. Come on. I'm sitting on top of the world. I'm singing a song. Yes, singing a song.
After World War I, America roared into the 1920s. Returning soldiers no longer wanted to be farmers. They looked for bright lights, movie stars, and glamour. In the middle of nowhere, USA, the Norconian Resort Supreme provided it all.
And I'm sitting on top of the world. I'm singing a song. Yes, singing a song. Come on, give me all you got now. I'm sitting on top of the world. I'm going along. Yes, going along. And I'm with the blues of the world.
In 1920, Norco was known as Orchard Heights, and it was all farmland. Horses were used for work, not pleasure, and the streets were a little less crowded. Rex Clark bought Orchard Heights and renamed it Norco. He believed happiness was found in chickens.
Certainly, originally it was small chicken farms, and then in drilling just a normal, what was supposed to be just a normal well one time, he hit this hot sulfur water, and that's where the whole idea of the spa came from. And I remember his bringing some of this nasty tasting water home, and I've always been a big water drinker, and I took a big drink of water and bleh, and Dad said, "Oh, you've gone and spoiled it." It was very annoying because he expected everybody to be very excited about this, and it tasted, of course, perfectly horrible.
Rex Clark announced he was going to build the most luxurious resort and spa in America, the Norconian.
And if he was going to have a spa, of course, it had to be bigger and better than anyone else's spa. Everything had to be bigger.
In 1927, in the middle of an alfalfa field, the best architects and builders began to construct a magnificent example of Mission Revival-style architecture. Rex Clark was building a bridge between rural America and a modern and cultured nation. The grand opening was February 2nd, 1929.
It was like a Hearst Castle type of a building, and beautiful, and a lot of paintings and fancy ceilings and tile work and all like that. And many times you'd be out there, and some of these main real popular old-time actors weren't old-time at the time, but anyway, they would be there, and they would be right at your elbow. They just mixed right in with the group.
Many movies were filmed at the Norconian. From 1929, we see the pool and the famous high-diving platform. In Top Speed, we see the hotel.
Get a room. They say that's the swellest place around here.
If you want to see something swell, take a good look at my feet.
In this film, we see the hotel, pavilion, and golf course.
All right, Benny, come on.
No,
Why not?
because you hit me in the stomach when my back was turned.
The Great Gabbo wasn't filmed at the Norconian. It was performed live.
And then the Olympic team, when they had the Olympics in L.A., they would come out and they would practice out there.
So did the University of Pittsburgh's football team. Gertrude Ederle, the first woman to swim the English Channel. Lou Nova, boxing champion. Helen Wills, one of the greatest tennis players of all time. And baseball legend Babe Ruth. But the triumphant days were soon to end.
The tremendous crowds which you see gathered outside the stock exchange are due to the greatest crash in the history of the New York Stock Exchange in market prices.
It's hard for people in our day and age to understand the intensity or the depth, the psychological trauma of the Great Depression. The equivalent would be, let's say you went to your bank machine, your ATM, and you try to get money, and your account's empty. And you go, well, where's my bank account? Well, it's gone. Well, where's the bank manager? Well, he just shot himself. It's like, oh, and by the way, your mortgage company's calling in your mortgage, you're laid off, and they're going to repossess your car.
Tragically, few people could afford the Norconian, and in 1941, after 10 years of struggle, Rex Clark's dream would come to an end.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
It was almost as bad as being stationed at Corona.
The United States Navy, the greatest navy in the world.
On December 8th, 1941, the Norconian became the United States Naval Hospital. Soldiers wounded from the war in the Pacific recovered in luxury and were entertained by the biggest stars.
I may be wrong, but I think you're swell. I like your style, say, think it's so marvelous. I'm always wrong, so how can I tell? All of my shoes are unsightly.
But see, the first time I saw the Norconian, I was on this bus with 25, 30 other corpsmen. We knew we were going to be stationed at Corona Naval Hospital, but we did not know what Corona Naval Hospital was going to look like. We were shocked and happy to see that humongous, beautiful, most beautiful building I had ever seen. And we didn't feel like we were in the Navy or in the service, you know.
In 1963, the Naval Hospital became the California Rehabilitation Center, and prisoners were moved into the old hotel. In 2000, the Norconian was listed on the National Registry of Historic Places. In 2002, the state of California abandoned the former hotel, declaring that it was too expensive to maintain, and ordered this beautiful and historic building sealed. Today, this designated national treasure sits isolated in the middle of the prison with no public access. Inside, miraculously, the Norconian looks much the way it did in 1929. Except that now, dust, dirt, and grime covers priceless chandeliers, colorful tile work, and exquisite hand-painted murals. Tragically, a worse fate awaits. Water is destroying the interior. Fragile paintings sit unprotected from rainwater. Pieces of art have already been destroyed. Hundreds of others are soon to follow.
Well, I think the state has an obligation to maintain property that it has, especially property that has that historical significance. So,
as long as the old hotel is buried within the prison, will private investors spend the money to restore the Norconian to its former glory? If not, does the state of California or the federal government have an obligation to use taxpayers' money to preserve a one-of-a-kind national treasure? Do we only want to maintain those things which cost nothing, or are only in our own cities or states? Are we content to let our historic buildings crumble so our children will only read about them in books or see them on television? Or do we, as Americans, just not care?